Fingerprints on your iPhone might not be such a bad thing going forward. Leaked announcements tell us our trip to Germany won't be in vain. And will we ever see another Windows phone from HTC? All that and much more in the hour ahead on episode 057 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and the state of mobile technology in 2013. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocketnow, and today I'm joined by freshly vacationed managing editor Anton D in Oradea, Romania. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
And by the baritone, the bold, the brassy, Joe Levi from Utah here in the States. Good morning to you, Android guy.
I am so much a bass, not a baritone, but I'll forgive you this one time.
You know what? I will just take that correction. I've wittingly made that mistake over and over because I like the way the word baritone sounds better than bass.
It does. It sounds better. And it's not often misspelled with a fish.
I was just going to say, it's not a homonym, hologram. Anyway, we've got a lot of news to jump into and a finite time schedule. Not sure if we'll get to listener mail. I guess it depends on my co-hosts and how quickly the show goes. But before we jump into the rundown, Tony kicked off the pre-show IM thread with the phrase, "Hold this cat," which is not quite as stirring as, what is it, high-tech catamaran or
it's humongous tinfoil catamaran.
Right. And surely there are many other variations to come. Of course, we're referring to the Robert Downey Jr. HTC commercial campaign, which I will admit, guys, I don't know, Joe, I don't know what your status is, but I haven't watched the whole thing. I've just seen the 15-second teaser. I know the commercials are out there, and I hear they're really bizarre. Is that true?
Hungarian trombone concert.
Wait,
I'd pay money for that.
So would I. Is that one of yours, Tony, or is that a real one?
No, I think it was there or in the comments.
Oh, wow.
And Tony, then I feel like I know Anton's feeling on this because he followed up that initial one with what is it? Oh, hopeless television commercial. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and I have an even better one which suits the one. It's horrid telephone camera.
Oh no, it doesn't. I like the one camera. So there seems to be some kind of divided opinion. Maybe I'm being a little generous. I don't think a lot of people are really digging these commercials. Am I wrong on that? This is a new campaign from HTC, by the way, listeners. If you don't know what we're talking about, this is their new push that they've apparently spent, what, $1 billion on? Did I
Something
see that
like
right?
that. I think Robert Downey Jr. got $2.5 million for the campaign, which will run through 2 years.
It's a 2-year campaign. My God.
Well, they've got him for 2 years. Whether or not they keep doing this kind of or not, I'm still holding out hope that they change to something a little more professional. How else can I say it?
So, like you see where they were going with this, right? You've got like Robert Downey Jr. He's got the whole Tony Stark thing going on. He's associated with technology. He's one of the most popular performers in the world right now. And he also happens to be a good guy these days. So, like, you're like, all right, perfect target. So you see why HTC would have chosen him. But I think what people are kind of weird about is, or what's not landing with people is the concept, right? Which is basically Robert Downey Jr. showing up in random places and coming up with weird permutations on the acronym HTC, like hot tea catapult, hipster troll car wash.
That rocks.
That's true. I gotta give him that.
Now, according to Ad Age, which I'm reading right now, or how do you pronounce it? I mean, it's a play on things, right? Ad Age, adage. And anyway, the spot promotes the idea that HTC can be anything you want it to be, and ends with the forward-looking tag, "Here's to change." Which is not, I get it. The HTC has done conceptual level stuff like this before. We all loved the U campaign.
Best ever.
Best ever, agreed. But this is not the U campaign, is it?
No.
This is like the U campaign taken to some strange, weird carnival sideshow, and it's going to get attention, that's for sure.
No question. But is it going to be the right kind of attention? What do you think about the prospects for this lasting, for this succeeding? Anton, first.
I want to ask you guys something. You are in the business and you know stuff about HTC, but if you are your own sister or your mother or somebody who's not that well educated in technology, what does this commercial tell you? Does it tell you something about a mobile phone company? Does it invite you to buy something? Does it sell you a product?
No. I mean, not from what I've seen. And Joe, have you seen the full one?
Yeah, I've seen the full one. It was just an off to the side rip that I saw originally, not the full HD one, which I'm sure we'll have a link to in the show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's there to grab attention. It's there to make you go, "What was that?" And it's there to help customers remember, or potential customers remember what they saw and kind of get that acronym stuck in your head. Mm-hmm. It's not advertising a phone. It's not even really advertising the company. It's a huge brand recognition campaign to make people smile and laugh.
So, and I think if we keep in mind that this is going to be a long-term push, presumably, then this makes a bit more sense then. I mean, we can say, okay, this is the absurd part where they actually grab attention with it, and then over the next few weeks, months, and years maybe, they build on this and advertise specific products with it, with this thing that's already gotten our attention. That's the only way this makes sense to me.
Yeah, they're going to loop everything together and have the same faces, similar situations. I'd love to see, as we're going forward and actually starting to see products and features more than products, features of sense and whatnot advertised. If off in the background we see some of these things that we saw in the initial really weird out there, what on earth are they talking about commercial, like just run through, here's sense, and it's across all this stuff, and woohoo, and it's great, and we love it, and just right at the end of the commercial, hold this cat, and just stitch everything together.
Yeah.
Hey, is that the new Hold This Cat one?
I love that.
It's the HTC cat.
I love that the Ad Age article also says that, reminds us that HTC's actual acronym is High Tech Computer Corporation, which
let's not forget about that.
Is just hilarious. I hope that at some future ad, from this campaign, we see the company kind of bring that to light and tongue-in-cheekify it. I would really like to see, RDJ just, pull that out of his, it's like a high-tech computer, and everyone look at him like he's an idiot.
For about an hour or so until it got deleted, the best comment and the most upvoted comment on the video on YouTube, on the original video on HTC's channel, was "Help this company."
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
I saw that one. That was sad.
This could go one of two ways. This could go the way that we just described in an ideal scenario where the campaign matures and actually does its job, or it could go the way of the Palm Girl, and I think only time will tell. But I think it's fair to say at this point that we're all just either intrigued or confused, and things could be worse. Am I right?
Let's hope they will not.
Most of us are a little intrigued and a lot confused now. So
maybe we're a little bit of both, right?
Not mutually exclusive at this point.
True. Well, then let's move on from HTC. I like the. I've woken up this entire week to Jaime Rivera on the Pocketnow Daily because this is not a plug, by the way. This is actually true, because I realized I wasn't watching the show at all. I hadn't watched it in weeks, and I was like, well, that's a bad idea. Why don't you watch Jaime's show again?
Bad precedence.
I know, right? So I've been waking up to the Pocketnow Daily every day this week, and it's really helped me avoid things falling through the cracks. On last week's listener mail episode of the weekly, Stephen Shank brought up the what is it? What's the Ubuntu phone? The Edge? Is that what that is?
The Edge,
yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I mean, who's going to buy this thing? And Stephen's like, well, I'm going to buy one. And I'm like, wait, really? And he's like, yeah, I wrote an editorial about how I pre-ordered it. I'm like, oh, I got to pay more attention. I'm sorry. No, but the point is, Jaime's Pocketnow Dailies have been keeping me in the know. And one of my favorite things was this whole stretch of this week, the episode, as I think, Tony, tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's confirmed for me that our trip to IFA is going to be a really great time because there's going to be a lot to see.
Yeah, and I have a feeling that once again this year we'll be done with IFA by the time IFA starts.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ooh, whose Windows phone was that?
That was mine.
Oh, is it?
Do you have to ask? You've got Tony and you've got Joe, the Android guy. Whose Windows phone was that? Seriously?
I know, but I didn't expect Tony to have his active. I thought he'd pull the SIM out of the thing and leave it alone.
No, it's on Wi-Fi only. So you're
okay. So I'm right. No,
Yep.
so but I didn't really frame that IFA bit correctly. IFA is coming up next month, early next month. It is the annual trade show in Berlin, Germany, where companies show off their radio telephone wares, if you will. And we went last year. It was my first trade show ever in my life, and it was wonderful. But then I did CES and MWC as well, and what last year's trade show circuit taught me, or last season's, was that all of the important stuff now happens at independent announcements outside of trade shows. It's not the way it used to be. But so I was worried about IFA this year. I'm like, Tony, we're going to have to be trolling the show floor out in the fringes doing reports on Pokemon iPhone cases and refrigerators that tweet.
the vacuum cleaners.
Yeah. But no, I mean, it looks like we're going to have some cool stuff here. We keep getting specs leaked on the Galaxy Note 3. Which and that's kind of been an IFA thing. That's the Halo product of IFA.
At a point, I was afraid that since the Galaxy S3 was the first Galaxy S to move away from MWC, maybe Samsung will move away with the Note 3 from IFA, but hopefully I was wrong.
Hopefully so, yeah. All signs still point to an IFA announcement for this thing, and we'll get into the specifics of that a little bit, but I just want to outline it and say that we are also expecting, what else is in the thing here? The
Sony.
Yeah, there's a Sony event that we
the
are going
Honami,
to be
hopefully.
at. Is it right? And then there's the we may see the HTC One Max. We don't have any evidence to that, right?
Not yet.
Yeah, but hopefully the HTC uses that opportunity. If that is the case,
It would be the logical move.
It would be, because you'd be putting it up right up against what Samsung is dropping. But then there's also the thing that I'm most excited about. Can you guess what it is?
Yeah, I'll let you guys talk. I'll be back.
Thank you, Joe. Joe called it the smartwatch. The Galaxy Gear smartwatch launch at Samsung IFA event confirmed, according to Stephen Shank's news story from yesterday, it looks like. There's a trademark has been filed for the name Galaxy Gear on behalf of Samsung. And it might be on the agenda for the IFA event, and this is coming to us from Sam Mobile. So this is a smartwatch. It looks, any kind of big company that's bringing a smartwatch is exciting to me. Are you guys as surprised as I am that, as unsurprised as I am that Samsung has beat Apple to the punch on this? Or if this is true?
Because Samsung already had a smartwatch before this.
Well, I mean, like a real smartwatch. Wait, which one are you talking about, though?
I think I'll look it up, but I don't know why I have this idea that they already had a smartwatch before this.
You're not thinking of the Sony Live View, are you?
No.
Oh, that's not a smartwatch.
No. So, given the increased awareness of wearable tech and smartwatches in particular, thanks to Pebble and some of its competitors that are still kind of trying to get their feet under them. I think this is going to be definitely a well-attended launch event if it happens. I think this is going to be a very interesting product to see, and I really, really hope the rumors are true, because if we see this at IFA, I'm just going to be so thrilled. Even if it's bad, I'm going to be excited, because I just love smartwatches.
Yeah,
Michael.
Yeah.
Do you remember the only smartwatch I was excited about?
Oh, yeah, totally. That was at MWC. So Tony was it's super excited for the
iWatch.
The big one. Is that? Oh, iWatch. Yes,
Yep.
That's right. I can never remember the brand name because it's the weirdest brand name I've ever heard.
Yeah. They should hire Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, it's already weird enough. So I'm pretty excited about it. You didn't happen to find the other Samsung smartwatch, did you, Tony?
No, I wasn't even looking.
Okay.
I'll start looking.
No,
we'll
you don't have to.
Then.
It's okay. We can move on. I'm just excited. I'm encapsulating all of this broadly to say that I think it's going to be really cool in Berlin in a couple weeks, and I'm excited to see all this stuff with my own eyeballs and to bring it to y'all.
Yeah. Plus, let's not forget about the rumored LG G Pad. LG's comeback.
Yeah, so I was going to put that in the rundown, and then I just failed to get at all excited about it, so I didn't. Is that going to be is that rumored to be an IFA release as well?
Yes, and it's rumored to be the comeback of LG in the tablet world, and it looks to be, from the rumors, a solid competitor for the Xperia Tablet Z.
Yeah, So let's talk about LG for a second. So that is an 8-inch tablet that we may or may not see, and the reason I couldn't necessarily get excited about it was because, I was at the G2 event, and the event itself was wonderful, and the product itself is very powerful, but it didn't stir my emotions. Now, we have Joe, the Android guy, on the show, and I want to ask him, because Tony, you and I have talked about it a bit, but I'll ask for your opinion on it in a second. Joe, what was your feeling on the LG G2?
That about sums it up.
That's a great sound, brother.
You like that?
You think you need a moment?
It's just a rush of mixed emotions. Looking at the device, it's a logical evolution. It's what kind of we'd expect to be. It doesn't include all of the specs that I thought it would have.
What were you expecting? Like a fingerprint scanner or something?
No, I was expecting it to have a Snapdragon 800, and right now it looks like it's just going to be a 600, which still that's a good chip.
No, the G2's got the 800.
We're talking about the G2, not the Nexus 5.
Hello.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No. I'm definitely.
Well, then I got to start all over.
But you're right, Joe. That is ultimately where I'm going with this. But because we haven't talked about the G2 itself, I wanted to know your
Yes, I was getting ahead of myself and segueing over. So it looks like a good device. The videos that I have seen, the depictions that I have seen, it looks really nice. I'm not a fan of custom skins. I don't really like the whole overlay that LG has, but it's got a nice, the knock feature is really cool. I love that.
Yeah, that's the feature where you can double tap on the screen to unlock and to relock.
And to relock it, to turn the screen off. I think that's great. It takes away from the oddity of having that power button on the back, which honestly I think that and the volume keys are a really great idea. I loved that when we had the power button on the back of the Motorola Zoom, if you remember way back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
That was just a conveniently placed button, and I think this is a good place to do it. And it kind of goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. We've been begging to have bezel-less designs forever, and we just kind of never asked the question, what are we going to do with the buttons that are on the bezel? Where are they going to go? How are we going to handle that? And, well, here's LG's answer. Is it the answer that's going to stick around? I don't know. But unless we're putting them on the top or the bottom, I think we're going to have to.
And that's a good point. And according to LG, according to their marketing materials, the button on the back makes everything possible. You got to remember that. Yes. It makes everything possible. Tony, what was your feeling on the G2?
I'm gonna say that my feeling towards the G2 is exactly the same as my feeling was towards the S4.
Exactly the same.
Exactly the same. It's a good phone. It's a great phone. I love the bezel-less design, but it somehow fails to excite me. And believe me, I'm one of the few LG fans on the team.
Well, see, here's the thing. That was my frustration, and I wrote a piece to this effect last week that I won't recount my entire opinion, but I wasn't an LG fan. I came on the team last year, in the spring. And at that time, LG hadn't made anything really compelling to my eye in a while, and they'd been fooling around with 3D displays and claiming that they were first.
Those were fun.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, whatever, LG. I mean, I don't know what you're doing, but it's not exciting to me. And then somehow I was the one to review the Optimus G, and as we know, if you've listened to the Pocketnow Weekly over the year that it's been on the air, you know that the Optimus G blew us all away. From hardware to software, it's just an outstanding experience. And so I became a very, I didn't become a fanboy, but I became, I was impressed by LG for a bit. And I was excited to see what the G2 became. And to see that they've abandoned that identity, that hardware identity that they had of glass and kind of faux metal and this unique look for essentially a Galaxy S4 clone on the hardware side is really frustrating to me. And I mean the build side. I mean, of course, the hardware is impressive with the Snapdragon 800 under the hood and all that stuff. And I love some of the new software features, but even the software is visually speaking, for a shallow individual like myself who needs his stuff to look good, this is not the most exciting phone I've ever seen. But, I think it's also important to keep in mind that Samsung is blowing everyone else out of the water with the Galaxy S4, which is a lightweight, shiny plastic phone with cartoony software. So hopefully LG does very well with this. We'll see. We're going to get our own review unit at some point. But
yep.
Anyway, So that's it. But the whole reason I brought up the G2 was not to talk about the G2, but to talk about the fact that the LG Nexus 5 is rumored to be a watered-down G2. Now, Joe, you had some thoughts on this.
Yes, I jumped right to those, in fact.
Yes, you did. So what's the deal?
I want to remind everybody, I'm 2 hours earlier than Michael, so if he sounds tired, subtract 2 hours from that.
Well, I am tired. I'm also scatterbrained, if you couldn't tell, because I woke up and I had to do something that I can't talk about. It's under embargo until tomorrow, but you'll find out tomorrow.
I did something too, but it's not under embargo, but I'm not going to talk about it. So the Nexus 5, we don't know if that's what it's going to be called. We kind of think it is. And my suspicion, I've got a piece that I was supposed to get up this morning, but I deliberately didn't because I wanted to talk about it on air and get you guys to weigh in so I don't sound like an idiot any more than I already do at this point in the podcast. So the G2, or I'm sorry, the Nexus 5s, too many numbers on the screen. Why can't they call it something like Galaxy S5? I think it's going to be based on the G2, just like our Nexus 4 was based on the Optimus G.
Right.
And I'm happy with that. I'm entirely good with that. If the rumors hold true and it has a step down in the processor down to the Snapdragon 600 from the 800, that'll be a little bit frustrating to me, a little bit disappointing. I think we can still do a flagship phone at plus or minus $20, $30 higher than what the Nexus 4 was sold for, and still have a really good phone and have the flagship SoC built into it. It's also got a different camera, it looks like. Again, just speculation here.
From 13 to 10 megapixels, it looks like, and no word on optical stabilization.
Right, and then coming from a Nexus 4, hey, a 10 megapixel camera, I'm good with that.
Right, and that also puts it at parity with the Moto X, Google's other high-profile device.
Right. I'm not too happy with cutting the storage down. If you've got an 8 gig or 16 gig phone, okay, give me an SD card slot so I can throw a 64 gig card in there and store my music, my movies, my whatever. Right. Because despite how people say, well, everything's in the cloud, that's great when you're in range of the cloud, when the cloud doesn't have hiccups, when just the last couple days. What if it's sunny
outside and there's no cloud?
Oh, snap. There have been a couple days, last 2 days in a row out here where my T-Mobile has just been miserable.
No way.
Well, normally,
I know.
I'm great where I am.
I'm just trolling. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can troll, and that's cool. But what I tell people is look at who is using the devices, look at who is using the carriers in your area.
No, it's true.
Because your carriers are very much area specific, and out where I am, T-Mobile is generally great, especially with LTE.
But you've been having a hard time recently.
I've been having connected to the network, but no data over the network for the last couple days, so it's been hard, and that means I can't read my ebooks because I've only got a few pages, the next chapter on the device.
Spotify unless you've downloaded the playlists.
Yep.
Yeah.
No Netflix, no YouTube, no.
So you would still prefer more internal storage. I think I
would like to have that. I would love to have that.
There's hope for that because the G2 is rumored to be, or not rumored. No, I'm sorry. An LG spokesperson confirmed, or executive confirmed, that the G2 would be modified for different carriers. So there are going to be carrier variants with different specs.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Nexus 5? No, it's not going to have a slot.
Well, I mean, but that's not confirmed. We don't know that. I mean, it's a Nexus, right? I know that that's what the precedent says.
You know that.
I know.
Yeah, you know that. It's not going to have a slot.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, we'll see what this is. Again, this is not really compelling to me. Tony, what is your feeling on this?
I can't remember a single Nexus phone which was a flagship device. So stepping down the processor to a Snapdragon 600 is still a fast device. I mean, just look at the HTC One, look at the Snapdragon 600 versions of the S4. That's a fast SoC. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't really mind that much. And the 10 megapixel camera, come on, 600 Snapdragon with 10 megapixel shooter, better than the HTC One. So in terms of specs, raw specs on paper, I don't mind the reduction of specifications. What I do mind is the 8 gig version. So that even for me is a little bit just too little.
Yeah.
But
we're past the days.
that aside, I can live with these specs. And again, it's going to be a very cheap device if these rumors turn out to be true. And another Nexus I will never buy.
It's okay. I'll pick it up for you. It's great.
Yeah, it's funny because I think the Galaxy Nexus was the closest one that I saw achieve like semi-flagship status, and it's coincidentally the only one I bought and really enjoyed for a bit. With the exception of the horrible camera and bad screen and bad battery life and all that kind of stuff. But,
get the extended battery and everything's happy.
I had the extended battery. That's the problem.
I've got 5 of those in my house right now, dude. I have 5 Galaxy Nexii in my house.
Nexii. Well, it's gonna be fun to see this. I can only imagine that we will be paying very close attention to this in the weeks ahead. So stay tuned for more on that. Let's move on and talk a little bit about, just touch very briefly on a device we mentioned before from another company, a large device, the HTC One Max. Jaime described this in his Pocketnow Daily as this leaked press render as, well, it looks like an HTC One.
And the One Mini.
Yeah. It's just, I'm looking at this press render right now. And Tony, this was your news story from August 12th.
Mm-hmm. But I have an update. Yeah. Go on.
Oh, good. Well, just the leaked press render, if it is still legit, it looks identical to the one. I think the larger HTC logo on the back sort of gives it away, but
and
otherwise
the new placement of the LED flash on the back.
Oh, what it's under instead of alongside?
Yeah, but I think if my sclerosis is letting me think clearly, that that HTC, according to some reports, at one point debunked these renders and said that there's nothing true about them. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, if the report is true or not, or if HTC's debunking is true or not.
Really?
So that's the update, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so there's. I'm looking for more news on this.
While you look at news, it would make all the sense in the world for the HTC One Max to look like this, because the HTC One is the standard design, which HTC was reusing for the One Mini, which we reviewed, and it would just make all the sense in the world for the One Max to look similar. I mean, same design, same aluminum materials, and you know what? I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Now, the only thing that's been in the past 24 hours, we've only seen reposts of the original leak, so we have no information on either way on this right now. Does it make sense for HTC to kind of try and penetrate into the phablet space? I mean, it's growing certainly, but is it growing as explosively outside of the territory of, say, the Galaxy Note right now?
Joe?
Well, the way I look at it is if they don't do something to get into the phablet and tablet space, somebody else will, and they're going to miss the opportunity.
Right.
This design has been proven to work well. It stands out. It's not like just a generic slab that nobody can recognize and nobody knows the difference. It stands out primarily because it's got those front-firing speakers. So HTC is sitting on the edge of an opportunity to get into that space and to make their name known, not just on phones, but on phablets, tablets, and move on from there. Whether or not they're going to take advantage of that opportunity, or even if they're able to take advantage of that opportunity, remains to be seen. But if they're going to do it, the design of the One is the time to do it. And maybe that's the whole point behind it, is they've got this one design that they're going to lead the company with. And, then in 6 or 8 months, we'll be bored with it and, say, oh, it's just another one. There's nothing new to the design.
Yeah, I can already envision our tone of voice as we say, 8 months ago, this was awesome, guys, but do something different.
Aren't we fickle?
We sure are.
Let's remember, we don't have to be huge analysts to see that HTC is bombing or targeting. Hopefully, these words won't trigger some NSA reactions. Samsung with their latest products. I mean, the HTC One and the S4, side by side. S4 Mini, One Mini, side by side.
Right.
Note 3 Max side by side. So whatever Samsung is doing on whatever screen size level, HTC is doing the same. And I think that it's a great policy.
Now, I think tactically this is true. Now, Tony sent a link to Joe and me to a Tech Radar article, which is the one that is calling this a possible load of massive baloney because none other than, well, first of all, this leak came from EvLeaks, and then it was debunked on the Engadget post by none other than Jeff Gordon, HTC's PR, one of
head of PR for the US
communications manager, senior global online communications manager. Jeez, boy, I didn't know
that's a title, Jeff.
That's an awesome title. Why can't I have a title like that? No, so who said it was fake? EvLeaks is way off his game, and then of course the Engadget commenter community called him a troll, and then it all devolved into whatever. But whether or not this particular render is official, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think we all three of us on the air think it makes a lot of sense for HTC to be, playing in this market. Although I have to be honest with you guys, I would be very concerned about how they would leverage the added screen size, because they don't have. I sound like a broken record on this, but they don't have the digitizer. They don't have the compelling stylus solution, which makes the Galaxy Note line compelling. And this is what I say whenever another company comes into the phablet space and they're like, check out this huge screen. I'm like, sweet, what can I do with it? Nothing. Because there's not added hardware to take advantage of all the real estate. And so, I don't know.
I know you're a huge fan of the stylus or another additional input method, but I will disagree again, like we usually disagree. Yeah. Since I have the one, oh my god, since I have the Note 2, I can't remember maybe 2 or 3 times pulling out the stylus, out of which for the first couple of times were when we were in Barcelona, when you brought me the Note.
When you first got it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't use the stylus at all, so I'm just using my phablet. Whenever using the phablet, I think Joe dropped off.
Oh, all right, we'll get him back.
I'm using it like a big phone.
Yeah, but is that... And I mean, is that more compelling to you? I mean, does just the sheer added size?
Not necessarily the added size, but the advantages which come with it. And I'm specifically thinking about the larger screen, which allows me to see more information at one time, and the larger battery. And we all know we love the Note 2 because it had a great battery life. And the larger the phone, the larger the battery.
Well, it's true. But then there is a threshold to that. Welcome back, Joe. But
hey, thank you. Good to be back.
There is a threshold to what we'll accept from that, because as we just saw from Taylor Martin's review of the Xperia Z Ultra,
there's a line. there's a line there.
Although I have to say that is the prettiest review I've seen visually in a while. Like, Taylor really did a nice job on the layout on that one. Just to be geeky about layout for a second.
Did you realize you said this sentence to the guy who was using the Asus phone pad?
I was just gonna say, Tony, you're like the biggest fan of oversized phones and mini tablets. So
yeah,
maybe we should get Taylor to. Oh no, we have to send that back to Nexii, don't we? I was gonna say.
I think we already did.
Oh, sad face, because I would have brought it over to you for IFA. Anyway, so let's jump ahead. We don't even know if this thing is real, and it's been fun to speculate, but there's other real news to deal with. In particular, a bit of question asking from our friend Joe Levi. Is the new Moto X8 chip the future of Android? Asks Joe.
I can't wait to hear the answer, because when we talked about this with Joe, I said I was curious to hear about this topic specifically, but I haven't managed to read the post, so I'm going to mute and just listen.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because I would like to hear it from Joe's mouth as well. I've read the editorial just this morning, in fact, and I tend to agree with your conclusions, Joe, but I think it's going to be an uphill battle convincing ordinary people or ordinary geeks that this is at all worthwhile. What is your tell us what the X8 system is, if you would.
All right, so first to address your point, is it at all worthwhile? Yes, absolutely yes. Is the new Motorola X8 chip the future of Android? Yes and no. And so we'll caveat that.
That's nice. But
and then
remind us of what its Halo product is.
Yes. So everybody knows. The Motorola X8 is more than just an SoC. It is the chipset, essentially, to use an old term that we don't see much anymore, that Motorola is using in their current devices. It's in the Moto X. It's in some of the newer Droids. And in short, they are doing something unusual. They are taking, instead of consolidating everything that they can onto a chip, that's what an SoC is. It's a system on a chip. Instead of doing that, consolidating costs, reducing materials, they're pulling out very specific features and functionalities and putting them on their own discrete little bits of silicon. They're putting them in their own chips. So X8 is essentially an SoC, and in this case it's a Snapdragon, and who cares about what it is. But it's got these two other very distinct chips that do very specific things, and they do so at very, very low power. It's got a digital signal processor, and it's got kind of like an ambient awareness processor that knows contextually where it is, what environment it's in. Is it in your pocket? Is it in your purse? Is it face down on the desk? And then can apply logic to that to say, well, I should have my screen off, or I should have the screen on, or I should have the volume louder, or I should not be listening to hear things because I'm going to be muffled in a bag.
Right, and just to inject a little bit there, it is having the Moto X around the house is always interesting because I can jostle the table that all my phones are on, and only one of them lights up because only one of them knows it's moving and is applying logic to that and saying, oh, well, you have notifications and you haven't moved me in a while, so here I am, and it'll the active display will breathe, and then it'll go away, and it's really nice. Sorry, go ahead.
Just to interrupt a little bit, I want to interrupt you both. First of all, you, Michael, because you were the most recent to talk. If you remember, the S4 had such a feature that whenever you picked up the S4, it slightly vibrated if you missed something while the S4 was sleeping on the table.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one. And a question to Joe, if for the layman out there, would it be okay or fair to make an analogy between these X8 extra SoCs or extra pieces of silicon and the GPU? The GPU is doing specific graphic tasks, and these pieces of silicon in the X8 are doing also specific pieces of tasks. So is it okay if I, as a layman, think about this extra chip like a GPU, but for other activities?
Sure. So to speak to that, your GPU, your graphics processing unit, and there's usually at least a couple cores handling processing visual data and turning it into pixels on your screen. That's only on when the device is on. When the CPU is getting instructions and doing things, and they work together. The CPU, RAM, and GPU all work together kind of in conjunction with one another. So you really can't have GPU without CPU. However, you can have these other chips, and that's really what sets them apart from everything else that not everyone is doing, but it changes the paradigm to have these chips that are always awake. They're just sipping at the power because they're designed not to use much power at all, but they're operating completely separately from the CPU, from the GPU, from all of the other stuff. And sometimes that means they're waking them up to do things. Sometimes that means they're putting them into a deeper hibernation or deeper sleep. They're there doing all kinds of stuff more intelligently, which helps with responsiveness. It makes it so your device is ready for whatever you're going to use. You don't have to wait for it to warm up and to wake up. It's there. It's already there because it knows what you're doing. Or it's helping save battery by putting into that backpack, and you're not going to use it until you open the bag, go digging for it, and pull it out. And by that time, those several seconds that it takes you to get your phone out, it has realized what you're doing, and it's waking everything up, and it's all ready for you when you get to that point. But in the meantime, it just saved you a ton of battery because your CPU wasn't in standby. It was in a deep sleep.
And that all plays to Motorola's intention of designing a phone that's not more powerful in this case, but uses its existing power more intelligently.
Much more intelligently. Now, before we get too deep into this, which we may already be past that event horizon, the title of the article is the new Motorola X8 chip the future of Android? And we've got quite a bit of discussion going on there. A lot of people are saying, Samsung has a lot of this stuff that they're already doing. They have discrete DSPs and whatnot, digital signal process. Those points, yes, readers, you are absolutely right. This article was specifically about the Motorola X8, but in the bigger scheme of things, we're going to start seeing, Joe predicting the future here, we're going to start seeing more of these things pulled out of the traditional SoC and put into discrete chips for the battery savings, for the ambient information, for all of that. But that also means now you've got those chips that can evolve on their own separately from your traditional SoC. So now if we want to switch over to an Atom, or if we want to switch over to a Tegra, you've got these separate chips that you can put in there. You don't have to build this technology into the Snapdragon, into the Tegra, into the Atom.
And Motorola were specific about that. They said, we have completely isolated we've optimized the S4 that we're using, but it's not an integral component. You can swap out any chip, any AP in there that you want.
Exactly. So whether we're going to see the X8 chips powering every Android in the future or not, I think that's what a lot of people thought the article was about. And that's what we were talking about specifically. But we're going to see other manufacturers come up with similar solutions that do the same thing as the X8 chips do. And that's really a misnomer. They're not an X8 chip, but the X8...
The philosophy.
The family, yeah. And we're going to see that come to all other different platforms underneath the Android umbrella. And really, Motorola just took a huge leap ahead of everybody else by doing this. They've positioned themselves so that when new SoC, they don't have to worry about building their stuff into it. They just plop it and go. They've put themselves ahead of the rest of the field in that regard, and in the regard of what their devices do. And now everybody else has to play catch up.
Joe is making solid efforts not to turn into an Android.
yeah. Poor Joe. I think
Fight your inner Android, Joe.
Somebody in Joe's house is, I think, sneaking some YouTube videos on the side or something, because we keep losing at points, Joe.
I'm sorry. I'm even hardwired into the network at this point. So
that's cool, man. No, it's cool. We're still getting your thing. Listen, I think you're right. I love this philosophy, this thing that it's like, okay, we're breaking out of the mold of like, all right, well, what's on this next one? Well, this is newer, so it's okay. It's a Snapdragon 800. The previous one is Snapdragon 600, whatever. No, this is a designed system built specifically and designed so that you are not using the processing power you don't need to be at specific points. And I think whether you call it X8, whether it's from Motorola, it doesn't matter. This is a much smarter approach, and it's going to be used by every company eventually going forward. Because
the concept, well, yes.
That's what I mean, yeah.
The chips in particular, probably not, although Motorola may be licensing these to other people until they get their own up and running.
I can't see Samsung buying their chips.
Who knows? Who knows? But everybody mark this day down. This is a fundamental shift, not just in Android, but in the way that we use our mobile devices. And we'll be looking back on this in 1 or 2 or 3 years. This is when it all happened. This is when it started. Everybody else is going to get to this point, and it fundamentally changes the way that we interact with our devices, much for the better.
I like it. That's a solid button there. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Absolutely not. I have taken every word from Joe's mouth and I buried it deep in my brains.
Excellent. Good. We're all intelligent, more intelligent than we were before. And hopefully, listeners, that applies to you as well with regard to chip design, which I think, Joe, you did a wonderful job of making that not as dry as it could have been.
I'll try to be drier.
So just to move on to something that I don't think is going to be a game changer, and this will close out Android. Before I say the positive thing about this, let me just say the negative thing. I don't know, guys. I don't know what to do with this. Sony has taken a different approach to smartphone camera photography. So cameras are a big deal, right? Cameras are huge. We've been talking about the 1020 forever. The Moto X tries to have a good camera, but it doesn't. But they gave it their old college try. The LG G2 now has optical image stabilization. We're seeing cameras become very, very important. Actually, that happened a while ago. But
all of the Samsung cameras that are out there, the dedicated camera,
dedicated
cameras?
Android cameras, yeah. Like photography has become huge in the mobile space. So Sony, rather than play the game with everybody else of making like kind of either clunkier phones or phones with a lot of features packed in, has apparently, according to some leaks published in a story from 3 days ago from Stephen Shank, Sony has apparently opted to design some accessories that latch on to your smartphone and provide better photographs that way. And I don't mean like a little dime-sized magnetic clip-on lens. If this leak is correct, and if the scale is right in this photo, which comes to us from Sony Alpha Rumors, it looks like kind of...
That's almost full DSLR size.
Yeah, it's like taking an Xperia Z and slapping a can of lentil soup on the back of it, right? It's huge. It's called, in this photo, it's called the Sony Lens G, and it has an optical zoom capability because it's massive.
It is massive.
I mean, it's massive. And apparently, what is it? What is the info here? It connects to the phone via NFC and Bluetooth. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it will attach to your phone with magnets, the claim goes. So I have no idea how that happens because, as Stephen rightfully points out, the Xperia Z is mainly glass on the back there.
That's not a problem, you troll.
It's got a battery right inside.
Oh, it's got a battery of itself. Of course, it would have to.
And on the first leak, on the first render, there is also a holder which seems to hold it in place.
Yeah, there's a clip,
which is great because you don't want to have the thing tumble off your phone when you're bouncing around. Is there any optical image stabilization that we're seeing?
I don't think that's the issue here. The issue is
the leak also has a little Wi-Fi logo on it too. So
there's a Wi-Fi logo on the
leaked image. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe
would you carry this in your pocket? I mean, just the lens, because the phone, you have the phone.
That's the real question, right?
First of all, this is not one of those little stick-on lenses that simply goes over the camera that you have on your device and adds optical zoom to it.
Right.
This is completely self-contained. Second, is today the 1st of April? Because that was the impression I got when I first saw it.
Yeah.
This is an epic April Fool's joke.
Same time. So this looks ridiculous. Let's get this out of the way. This looks hilarious in the press render. It looks like something that would be very uncomfortable to carry in a pocket. It looks like something I would have a very hard time using on a day-to-day basis. It's hilarious. And by the same token, this is cool in the way that the phone pad is cool. Pad phone. Jeez, I hate how they did that. Yeah, the pad phone with the plug-in the Asus thing with the plug-in smartphone to the tablet. Like, this is one of those throwback concepts of the future that feels like it comes out of like 2003. As a matter of fact, hold up, it does. Remember before before phones had integrated cameras, we had those camera attachments. Like from Sony Ericsson, yeah, they clipped into the data port on the bottom, and Samsung had one. Mm-hmm. This is exactly that, except obviously much more capable. But you still end up having to carry two things. So I think for the average consumer, this is not going to be great. But Sony is a company that also makes really great cameras. They make the camera that Jaime and I use for all our Pocketnow videos. They're a wonderful camera company.
Yeah.
So this might produce some really excellent results, but my question, I guess, is still, if you're carrying around two separate things, if you care about camera quality that much, why not just carry a phone and a camera? And I never advocate that, but in this case...
Well, yeah, but this is smaller than a dedicated camera. And if my logic is right, this being standard NFC compatible, if you have an HTC with NFC, you could probably attach it to the HTC or to a Samsung Galaxy S4 now. Joe... What do you think?
Okay, so NFC, you're not going to be transferring pictures over NFC. The NFC, if it really has NFC in it, is only going to be used to pair the device. Pair the device to it. And, of course, not every device has NFC, which is silly these days. So there's going to be a way to do it manually. And whether it talks via a Wi-Fi Direct or whether it talks through Bluetooth, I would say probably Wi-Fi Direct because
it's faster.
Yeah, Bluetooth 4 uses Wi-Fi Direct as its transfer protocol anyway. So however it's doing that, looking at the press renders, this guy is seeing on his screen as the viewfinder what he's seeing through the lens. So it's got to be some kind of a real-time connection. I don't know. It just looks really goofy to me.
This would be something like I would carry, in this particular case, my Xperia Z to, I don't know, to the club in the evening and carry it naked. And then I'd go to Berlin with Michael and I'd bring my Sony Lens G with me because I would like, So this is the only scenario in which I can imagine this in my life.
And I get it. See, that's the thing. I want to justify this. I want to make this work because A, it's a cool idea. B, it increases the versatility of your device. And I'll say it again. C, it's a really cool idea. It's a cool, like, retro futuristic concept. And it could result in some added convenience if you're carrying a man purse around or a bag, or you're ready for a trade show, like you just said, Tony.
Yeah.
Though, to answer your question with some speculation of my own, will this lens be compatible with other phones? I would say not if Sony can help it. Because Sony has always been the company that's like, we're going to make our own standard. We're not going to play nice with all of y'all. And, as they have wonderful products in their history as well, as a result, because I loved my mini disc player for a long time. But, they're not around anymore. So we will have to see. I guess the rumors are pointing to a possible IFA release for this. And if this does get debuted at IFA, Tony, I'm going to be so jazzed to see this. And, it's funny because I really want to make it clear that though I'm sort of crapping all over this idea, I'm not, because it does seem very intriguing to me in a very geeky way. I just am pessimistic about its concepts for widespread adoption because it looks ridiculous.
So let's take this one out of the way and let's go back to those dime-sized fish lens stick-ons.
Yeah, those suck.
Why can't someone do something like this, maybe some knockoff, and make that concept work with this kind of concept? So instead of having this Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, yada, 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 just a big hunkin' telephoto lens that you slap on the back of your phone and it sticks there with magnets and suction cups.
I don't know. That's just, I get what you're saying. It's simpler, but yeah.
I can see knockoffs of that happening. And I can see people using it.
And I'm sure people are already at work on it, and we'll see it in like the fringes of the show floor at IFA. So anyway, we'll have to circle back on that, and hopefully we get some more info on that. But let's move on to Windows Phone, if it's all right with everyone.
Windows.
While we're talking about cameras, we have a comparison up, and I won't dwell too long on this, but I figured I would put it in the rundown because I figured Tony would want to say something.
Michael, take good care of it.
So
Tony's going through withdrawals.
Yes.
I'm sad. I'm a little sad about this piece because I worked pretty hard on it. As a matter of fact, I pushed back a review, a text piece, because it took me like 2 days to put this thing together, which is a comparison, a video comparison and a text comparison, comparing the Nokia Lumia 1020 and the original Nokia 808 PureView. It is posted at Pocketnow. You can check it out. It went up yesterday, and I'm sad about it because it's very late, and I think this is not something that people are really discussing as much as they have been in the past few weeks. But we were kind of overwhelmed with a lot of device launches and whatever. Plus, Tony's 808, the only 808 the Pocketnow team has, it was with Tony in Oradea. So
way over the pond.
Yeah. So Tony, we had to eat the cost to send that to Boston by way of New York, by way of France, by way of all these places. But anyway, it finally arrived. It arrived like 3 days late because of the stupid signature requirement and blah, 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 blah. I got the thing. And then I had to take a bunch of pictures side by side. I had to take a lot of video side by side. And by the time we were done, it's up. And now I don't think anybody really cares because we're late. But I'm very proud of the amount of samples I was able to get. And I am also, and this is, I think, where Tony and I will disagree. I think we already disagree on it. And I'm also very happy that I own the 1020 because I much prefer the output from the 1020, even though I think from a pro photographer standpoint, it is inferior, far inferior, actually. Tony, have you had a chance to look at the samples?
Yes, I have, and I've analyzed almost pixel by pixel. So
I thought you might have.
There are two things. I'm not talking about Windows Phone because Windows Phone is doing its best with Microsoft to keep me away from using it. I have a couple of problems with Windows Phone, and I will use Windows Phone again when these will be fixed. But OS aside, and strictly talking about the camera. I have two problems with the camera on the Lumia 1020. First of all, for me personally, the colors are very important. So when I go out and I snap a picture of something, I want that picture to be, those colors to be recreated on my monitor, on my laptop, on my paper, if I print it exactly the way my eyes saw that. So I don't want a super, super, super blue sky if in that particular scenario the sky wasn't super blue. That's number one. And number two, and I've read some reports, and I've even read Stephen Elop's opinion and explanation on this. The 1020 does additional sharpening on the image, which is, of course, optional. It can be fixed and tweaked via a software update, but I don't necessarily like the outcome because it sharpens everything, meaning it sharpens the noise too, and the overall images are more noisier than the images on the 808, which in comparison look softer, more dull, but in reality they're not. So these are about the only two things I want to mention. And of course you like the output because you like Super AMOLEDs, you like Instagram, and you are the kind of guy who loves these kinds of images and image reproductions. I, on the other hand, I'm a more classic dinosaur. And I'm talking about Windows Phone, and my Windows Phone just
you are
lighting up.
blowing up over there, Tony.
Yeah.
No, Tony, you're right, and it's a great illustration of subjectivity and just taste, because I admit it. Yeah, I kind of have some tacky tastes when it comes to this kind of stuff. If you're gonna give me the choice between authenticity and oversaturated colors, I'll take the oversaturated colors every day. I was trying to find the comment while you were speaking, but I can't find it. There's a comment in the post from a hilarious reader who says, like, I get the arguments in favor of authenticity, but, I don't really want authenticity all the time because life sucks. I want it to look better than it did. And, I am more in that boat, and I really do like the sharpening, because I like to take a photo that I've taken from my 1020, and I like to zoom in on like far away text and be able to read it. And yeah, as a result, there's a lot more noise in the shot. But with the 808, it's more accurate, but that text is fuzzy. It's so it's a question of what you're looking for. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm just smiling. I'm not. I'm happy.
I thought you were trying to jump in there. Yeah. So. And this is also, as luck would have it, the first time I've ever included actual 100% crops in a post. So being able to look at the grommets on my Sperry topsiders at ridiculous ridiculous zoom levels by default is really cool. Both of these cameras are pretty amazing. I have really enjoyed having the 808 next to the 1020 for this period, even though it meant a pretty in-depth bit of work here. But, ultimately I come away from it feeling like the things Nokia decided to emphasize, besides the contentious stuff that Tony, you and I have already talked about, besides this color saturation and sharpening, okay, put that aside for a second, and the things they've added to the experience, to me, make it on the whole a much more enjoyable one. And I'm not talking about Windows Phone or anything like that. I'm talking about the optical image stabilization, which really does have a nice effect, and the related issue of better low light performance. Because I did my best to try and get the 808 to perform as well in that shot of the Enterprise in the bathroom. You just can't, yeah.
So that's a huge problem of the 808. If you want low light images, it can definitely beat the Lumia 1020 if you are using a tripod with a 2.8 second exposure time. But if you're going to hold it by hand, there's no way you can get decent images.
Yeah, both of the low light shots that I specifically called out in the comparison, I look at the results from the 1020, and okay, they're not perfect, but man, I have never taken a better low light shot than those two. I don't think. And the 808 just, it can't get close, like you say, without a tripod.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of other, other stuff. I encourage everyone to read the description. We can't talk about it all this, but it was just fascinating learning about how different these cameras were. Everyone assumes that they just took the camera from the 808, bolted it to the back of a 920, and called it a day. No, the 1020 is a completely different design. Everything about it is different on the inside, and the results bear that out. So check it out.
So the person who wants to just pick up their phone and take a really good looking picture of anything, regardless of the situation, regardless of the lighting, indoor, outdoor, bright light, low light, which of these two should they get?
It's no question. Nobody will get the 808 with Symbian on.
Well, I know, but if you had those opportunities, if you had an 808 and a 1020 side by side at the cell phone store, which we're never going to have, but if you did, Which one should they get? Just for that camera functionality?
I think because the public's tastes tend to hew more closely to mine. My pedestrian, more color, more sharp equals more better. I think then the 1020 is the proper answer there. But I think if you're asking about people who value good photography, I think the 808 is the right answer. Unless you're talking about low light.
Yeah, I think
right,
to put it differently, Michael, you'd probably buy it, the Lumia 1020. Adam Lane would buy the 808.
There you go. That's not. Yeah. Well, if he wasn't. If we're not talking about the platform again, yeah, as long as we leave the
absolutely
bit out, yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
Cameras.
Yeah. So and speaking of Adam Lane, I didn't link to it here, but there is he wrote a wonderful guide on how to take amazing pictures with the 1020 that taught me a lot of stuff too. So check that out. Usually those are videos, but here it's a written piece and it works really well as a written piece. So check that out. Shall we move on from these devices? Tony, I'll bring you your 808 when I come to Germany. I'll keep it safe.
Please, I'm leaving my camera at home, so I'm relying on that.
Oh boy, okay.
No pressure there.
And to everyone asking if I'm going to be shooting any review videos with the 1020, yes, I think I will. I think I will shoot a forthcoming video with the 1020 if I can fit it in. The Windows, speaking of videos, the Windows official YouTube app is back on the Windows Store. That was pulled after Google complained.
It's not working.
It works for me. What's the matter with you? Is it a region thing?
It doesn't work. No, have you tried it recently?
I tried it
Fire it up.
yesterday. I don't have a...
Fire it up today.
All right. Well, I mean, it's in the other room. I don't know what to do with it. What's the matter with it?
The internet is full of reports. Yeah, like 6 hours after releasing the application.
Tell Joe about it. I'm gonna go get mine.
Okay, so 6 hours after releasing the application, I used it. It worked, but now it gives me an error, and it says something. Hold on, let me relaunch it. Launching, and something happened, and we're not sure what. And there was an interesting post on WP Central trying to explain why the error is happening. And the bottom line is that we are still not sure whether Google, again, did something or whether this time Microsoft overlooked some of the things regarding APIs, licenses, and stuff like that. Too techie for me. But the bottom line is the app is there. Download it. It won't work at the moment. And it's filled with one-star reports on the Windows Phone Store of people who are frustrated, rightfully, that the application is not working.
Oh, man. You talk about a high-profile... I'm downloading it now because I didn't have it on my 1020. I downloaded it on something else, the HTC 8XT.
Check the reviews while you're at it.
I just saw them. Like it's down to like less than 3 stars with 1,000 reviews or something like that. So that is disappointing. You would think that with such a high profile, remember when Google pulled it? Like that was huge news. Or when Microsoft pulled it at Google's request, it was massive news, and everyone was complaining, rightfully so, that this awesome YouTube app was being yanked. And then they were like, "It's okay, guys. We're going to work together on it, and it'll be awesome." You would think that they would have gotten the launch right? The relaunch.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, unless they didn't really work together and Microsoft just found a way to hack and slash it together. While you're waiting for that to download.
No. The first thing that happened when I opened the app was an error message that said, "Something happened and we're not sure what." That's it. All right.
And we're not sure what.
I think that this was probably the shortest topic on the podcast.
Yeah, can we be done with this?
Yeah.
I just have one little piece of nostalgia, and then we can be done.
Ooh, yeah.
Do you remember Microsoft Messenger way back in the day before it became Live Messenger and did all whatever? Do you remember what they did and the reason everybody used it? Because it worked with everything. It worked with Yahoo Messenger. It worked with the AOL Instant Messenger. It just worked. It was great. It was your one universal thing, but Microsoft didn't get permission to do that. And they were just putting this stuff in there, and as the other companies were figuring out what they were doing, they were locking it down so that you couldn't use it for AOL Instant Messenger anymore. Mm-hmm. And then Microsoft would fix something, and it would work again, and then AOL would do something, and it wouldn't work again. So is this just that all over again? Is Microsoft just making it work by finding holes and exploiting them, and then Google's patching them and breaking it?
I'm tending to agree with you, and because I'm going to have just a short explanation. around here, Facebook Messenger is the go-to source for people communicating in text, in writing.
Yeah.
And instant messages on Windows Phone suck. I said it in the past couple of 3 or 4 days. I'm going to keep on saying it. Instant messages should be delivered instantly and not after 6 or 7 hours or not being lost somewhere. So, in the lack of a proper Facebook Messenger application for Windows Phone, Microsoft did the same thing which you are referencing with the Windows Live Messenger. They integrated Facebook and Facebook with the People Hub and the Facebook messaging part with the Messages Hub. And I think that that's not an official Facebook thing, but it's a Microsoft thing. Microsoft trying to somehow circumvent or offer a solution, which is, I'm sorry to say this, not working. Half-assed, half-baked, you name it.
We'll see. I have no idea. I'm sure this won't take long to fix. And, you know, when they released their earlier version of this app, it was an awesome one. So hopefully this will, you know, come back and have its day in the sun after this kind of calamity. Let's talk briefly about. Actually, let's just touch on it. The Nokia Lumia 825 has been tipped as not just a variation on the 820, but as a budget Windows Phone phablet. Anyone else think this is the weirdest thing ever?
Yeah. Not that necessarily, but the two words which you omitted, probably on purpose from the headline, quad-core.
Yeah, I was going to get to that in a second. Yeah, well, no,
okay, sorry.
No, but you're right. No, that's part of the weird too, right? It's suggested to be it's a Snapdragon 400, but a quad-core version of the Snapdragon 400.
Mm-hmm.
I have
no knowledge of that.
Yeah, Jaime was talking about how that's weird in the daily, and I'm like, yeah, no, entirely weird. But then again, there's that weirdo variant of the S4 Pro in the Moto X that we just talked about, which is a dual-core device, even though it falls under the umbrella of S4 Pro branding. So who knows about chip manufacturers, right? I mean, Joe does, but you know. But so this is just a bundle of weird to me. We know that Nokia is not afraid to make large-screened Windows devices. We saw that in the, what was it, the 625?
Yep.
Which has a big, 5-inch on that one? Or does that one have a 5.2-inch as well? Because this one is
something.
So so this one is rumored to be 5.2-inch 720p on the 825 here. And because of those specs that are being batted around, it would have to be a Windows Phone handset running the GDR3 update, right? With quad-core support.
That plus hopefully support for larger resolutions, and on such a huge canvas, I'd like to see 3 rows of tiles if possible.
Oh, 3 column? Wait.
Yeah, columns.
So, but you can do that with the smaller ones. Oh, do you mean 3 rows of do you want another tile size? Is that what
yes. No, not necessarily another tile size. I want to be able to have
3 rows of big
simultaneously.
tiles?
Yes.
Oh,
I want the entire canvas to be wider because at 5.2 inches and at 720p or 1080p resolution, it can be done.
I would agree.
It should be done.
Even with the smaller tiles now, I can't get everything I want in the glanceable zone. I always have to scroll down for something, because live tiles are very useful. But I hate having to scroll down the page to see more. And even with all, you know what I tried doing recently was I tried running a Windows Phone with all small tiles. And it looks ridiculous. It looks
Android much?
Yeah, we're right, but except they're all square and they're all the same size and they're all multicolored, so it looks like you're carrying around like a cartoon. Well, no, because the iPhone is it because it's so minimalistic with the Metro thing. It looks like you're carrying around this like cartoon idea from the 70s about what a futuristic handheld device looks like. It's very fun, but also it's completely untenable, and I don't recommend it. Anyway, Tony, I agree. I think with a larger canvas, if it was used intelligently, that could be awesome. I have no hope for that until... When is Windows Phone due for its next refresh, anyway?
Good question. Sometime this fall, yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that because it's time... I don't want the design language to change because I like it, but it's time to get a little
Please
fresh
bring landscape support.
Landscape support would be really nice. Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
So let me go way out here and just be bizarre for a minute, because I know you guys don't get enough of that from me.
No, definitely not.
Windows Phone phablet. That's halfway between a Windows Phone and a Windows tablet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a really weird thing with the Windows tablet space right now. You've got Windows RT, which we know all how successful that is.
It's so
and,
great.
And then we've got Windows 8 tablets. And yeah. So this would have to be something similar to, but not quite, Windows RT on a phablet.
I think they can keep it Windows Phone, same OS.
Yeah.
Just add on something in addition to take advantage of the huge canvas and leave it in the phone department.
Right. But that gets to my point. We're adding one more version of Windows, essentially. I mean, it's the same version of Windows, but it's one more perceived version of Windows that's different from everything else. And I don't want to have to use the F word here, but that's fragmenting all over the place.
Right. Well, it is true from a user experience.
Well, even from an app standpoint, you've got. If you're an app developer, what are you going to write apps for? Are you going to write it in traditional Windows so it works on Windows 7, Windows 8 tablets and below? Or are you going to use the new architecture so that you can run it on Windows RT and maybe on Windows Phone? And then where is this Windows phablet space in the middle? What apps are going to run there? They're going to have to be phone apps, but they're going to have to be written differently so they can take advantage of the screen real estate. So I'm reminded of what Apple did, where they took their phone OS and scaled it up for their tab.
Yeah, and
Microsoft didn't.
That's true, and we have some problems as a result.
Lots of problems as a result. That sums up my concern right there. Lots of problems as a result. This is one problem.
It's a valid concern. I am put in mind of something a friend of mine said the other day when she was asking how I liked my Lumia 1020, and I was like, blah, 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 blah. She's like, what platforms I run? I'm like, oh, Windows Phone. And she's like, oh, no, actually, it went like this. She was like, oh, wow, yeah, no, that's good. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah, I've heard good things about Windows Phone. And then we went on to have a discussion about how she had heard nothing good about Windows. But the salient point is that Windows Phone's reputation, as struggling as that platform is to gain market share, like it has a good reputation for being reliable and smooth and buttery and fun. And at least in my circles, and I don't have the geekiest circles around, so I think that's a good sign. And if this 825 carries a slightly tweaked version of Windows Phone, I think it'll do as well as anything else. The question that we want to use to close out that this category is, will another manufacturer be making any more Windows Phones? And that's HTC. I don't know if I buy this rumor, guys. Have they even addressed it? This comes to us from Digitimes, and everyone's kind of hit and miss with leaks and stuff like that.
Especially Digitimes. Yeah,
and it wasn't. I read the original source and I was like, really? This is one of those sources familiar with the matter things, but the story almost reads like someone familiar with the matter said that HTC might at some point decide that Windows Phone is not right for them. It's like, well, okay, I might decide to stop liking macaroni and cheese at some point in the future, but I'm not doing it now.
I can comment. I can go either way. I can agree with this, and I can disagree with this. I could agree with this because I've recently seen some numbers according to which, of course, Nokia is on top of the Windows Phone OEM list, and Samsung is a solid number 2, and of course HTC and the others are following. Plus, HTC is in a little bit of struggle right now, financially and as a brand with brand recognition, so I would understand if they wouldn't invest time and money in working with Microsoft or in having Windows Phones out there for a while. And now I can forget everything I just said, and I can militate for the other idea that they will never ditch Windows Phone. So it can go either way.
Ooh, I've got another one. Have the cash.
Nicely done. So there is a compelling argument to be made when your company is not doing terribly well that you should ditch extraneous stuff and focus on one thing. That has certainly been my argument for Nokia all this time, when in the face of everyone calling for a Nokia Android phone. I'm like, no, why don't they just focus on the thing they know how to do and they know how to do well? HTC is doing very well with the one. It's not doing very well with anything else. right? So it makes sense that maybe they did.
Yeah,
see
Michael, but can I be mean?
Yeah.
Please be mean, Tony.
If you're having phones like the 8XT out there, how on earth are you expecting to be performing well on the market?
So that is exactly the point I was going to make, and thank you for doing it for me, because the review I had to push back, the written review, it was for the 8XT, and we've been sitting on this thing for like 2 weeks, and part of it is because we were overwhelmed with Moto X and G2 news, but also a part of it is that I was kind of holding out hope that I was wrong, because the video review has been up for the same amount of time. It's been up for a while, and the 8XT performs rather horribly for a Windows phone. For a mid-range Android phone, this would not be unremarkable. You get the occasional lag and stutter, and it's not terribly reliable, and apps kind of crash for no reason. Or a defective demo unit. Well, no.
What Android are you using?
No, like a mid-range or low-end Android phone. Come on, it's a phone that doesn't have the specs to back up the platform. Or for a defective review unit, that would not be out of the question. And even when HTC was, first of all, really awesome, they were quick, and they sent me a new 8XT in like a day when I told them I was having some serious problems. And man, this new one is just as bad. And it's not because of Spotify, as I initially thought, because I completely did a factory wipe on it and did not install Spotify because I thought that was the trouble point. This thing still, I'll hit the button. Sometimes it takes like a second and a half, 2 seconds to wake up out of standby. It's still got stutter. So not only was this phone unceremoniously released with very little fanfare on America's third largest network, this first Windows phone with boom sound, but it's not very well made. I hesitate to say it because I don't want to say it, but it's true. The score reflects that. The review, which will be up very shortly, is not a complimentary one, and it's a shame because HTC can do a lot of stuff well, but they really didn't do a good job on this phone. Yeah. So is that an indicator that maybe their focus has already shifted and we're just waiting for the official announcement? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. I really hope they continue making Windows Phone because I have always found the 8X a rather compelling device.
Okay, so I've got a question to take us back to an earlier topic in the show.
Good, that's what we need.
Yeah, let's go backwards. We talked about the LG G2, and then we talked about the possible Nexus 5 and how it's essentially a cheapened down version. It's running less specs. Tony said it's not necessarily a flagship phone, and it really doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. You can take out components and make something for the market that you're selling it to. And HTC has been really good at doing that. Not just today's HTC, but HTC all back through time, even when they were making Windows mobile devices, the iPac and whatnot. This might not be a bad HTC. This might be an HTC that was built to spec, and it was supposed to be a lower-end device, and it was built that way deliberately.
Yeah.
You want to say, like, here you go, Sprint, have a Windows phone, and just leave me alone?
Yeah, I feel like if that's the case, it's a crappy strategy, and if I don't.
Yeah, I don't agree with the strategy either. But we have to remember that a lot of carriers out there will say we want this device and we want it to be this price point with these specs, and.
Sure. But this is also. I agree, Joe. But this is the first time in Windows Phone, well, in my experience with Windows Phone, that I've seen a device perform poorly, maybe because of its lower specs. Like Windows Phone is famous for performing really well on almost any hardware there is. I think, Tony, the only other time I've heard about it being bad is, Tony, you reviewed the Lumia
5 something.
Yeah, it was like before the 520. It was the 510 or something. I don't know what it was. Yeah. And it didn't really perform very well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that happens.
And plus, when you're HTC and you are, let's face it, struggling a bit, this is hurting you.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want any bad press out there for, and I think we're dwelling on the negative here. And if you buy an 8XT or if you already own one, you're probably like, whatever, it stutters sometimes, whatever, it does its job, it's fine. It's because Windows Phone has established a precedent for being smooth in almost all conditions, and the 8XT doesn't live up to that.
Yep.
That's the problem, and that's why we're spending some time on this. So we'll see. Tony's got a jet. We've got to let's just power through this iOS news. I'm sorry we're going to have to skip listener mail today. The iPhone 5S components keep hinting at a fingerprint scanner. I thought the fingerprint scanner went the way of like the QR code, even though the QR codes are still around. Like, I thought these things were not cool anymore. Do you think
they're
Apple's
awesome,
find a way
dude.
to do it better?
I was about to say, unless they revolutionize it, I don't know how, aside from unlocking your phone and really making it secure.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if they were able to do something with biometrically encrypting your phone and all of your emails, and you could send secure communications to not only your email contacts, but secure FaceTime and secure all that other stuff?
That is very possible, Joe, because laptops are already using fingerprint scanners to unlock the computer itself, and once you have that scanner which recognizes your own fingerprints, then it's just one step away to have an encryption key and only you to be able to use it.
Well, and some phones have had it too, right? The first Atrix had a fingerprint scanner, and some Toshiba ones and stuff. So I guess we'll see. I think I'm excited for this just because if another company were doing it, I wouldn't be as excited. But Apple, for all the bunk they get, really does know how to make existing stuff work better sometimes. So it would be really cool to see the fingerprint scanner actually done right for once. I don't know. You know, maybe I'm being too hard on the old Atrix, but I seem to recall it wasn't terribly popular.
And to be my own devil's advocate, I don't think anyone will do that whole communication encryption and security, whether that's through traditional technologies, X509 certificates or whatever, or through biometric. Don't think that'll happen because, hi, NSA, how are you doing? Just want to see what's up. But if they were to do it, or if anyone were to do it, now would be the time because of all of the distrust that we have with all of our governments around the world.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
People in other countries who are monitoring and watching everything we're doing. Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if someone, whether that's Apple or somebody else, would come out with an all-encrypted
if they do it, they could be the BlackBerry of the 2014s.
No,
well, and they would immediately be able to sell that device to every single government agency and employee in the world, and they might even be mandated to do so.
That's a solid point. I mean, that would be a hell of a play, and it would be in direct opposition to what appears to be happening on the flip side with the 5C, which we'll close out the show with. The iPhone 5C has been leaked, apparently leaked, in not only a fun yellow shade that looks almost exactly like a lot of Nokia's, but also in a very strange-looking green, which looks like it glows in the dark, even though it probably doesn't. And I am excited for that. You have this fingerprint scanner idea, which maybe plays to the enterprise, the high-end segment. Then you have this iPhone 5C, which I think a lot of people think Apple needs to do, this lower-end device, to shore up their low-end offering. And it comes in a lot of colors. I think that's my biggest excitement ever. I wouldn't want a 5C, but I would want the extra colors.
Oh, no. If you want to be able to customize your phone, you get an Android. If you want to be able to customize your iPhone, you get a case. And your case can be yellow.
Cases
or your case
suck.
Can be
Cases are
green.
the worst things
that
ever.
was a low blow, Joe.
Yeah, so it's check out the links. We've got it's wonderful eye candy, if nothing else. I think we're long overdue. We've said it on the podcast many times. Apple's iPhones should come in more colors than black and white, particularly with the Moto X on the horizon, which lets you pretty much do any color combination you can think of. And we will have a lot more to say on that tomorrow, by the way, folks. You should tune in if you want some Moto X news tomorrow on some of that. And but for now, I think we do have to wrap it up. And Joe, I would like it if you made your internet connection as smart as you are, because it has been treating you poorly today. I'm mortified to say.
I am a backer of the Almond new router.
Oh,
so as soon as it gets here, I'll be here.
All right, Tony, I'm going to do the outro, but you have a nice day, sir.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Yeah, Tony had to run and answer his doorbell. So we and also I have to run and answer a call of nature after an entire podcast drinking coffee.
And I'm going to be politically active and call my city council person right now. So there you go.
Well, this is very exciting.
On my Android phone.
That's lovely. Well, good. I'm going to make a video with my Windows phone, so I think we've got a lot to do. Joe, thank you for joining us for this one. It's been a little while, and it's good to have you back on the air.
Always good to be here.
And that is going to do it for this episode of The Weekly. Find us on Twitter. Anton, who just left, is at ANTONDNAGY. That's Anton D. Nagy. Joe over there is at Joe Levi, JOELEVI. And I, as always, am at Captain Two Phones. Also, follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow on Twitter, as Pocketnow on Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. You can leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music if you like. And if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, or you just want to say hello, we will get your listener mail next time, or the show afterwards, podcast@pocketnow.com.
And don't forget the forums.
And do not forget the Pocketnow forums, which I always forget to plug, at forums.pocketnow.com, where we talk about a lot of fun stuff. Joe, thank you very much. Everyone, we'll see you next week. Oh, Joe, you get out of here. Till you start bringing RTJ jokes, you can't. Oh, no, I can't talk this morning.
Apparently.
Do we want to talk about this briefly on the air?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I have a couple of remarks.
All right, excellent. Well, the call recorder's already going, so if you guys are ready to go, let's do this thing, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Rock 'em.
Yeah. All right. God, cross your fingers, dudes. Here we go. 3, 2,